no, no! Ah!
CoCo Talk would like to thank our patrons who sponsor our show each week. So warm gratitude goes to Al Hartman, Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Blair Ledoux, Brendan Donaghy, Brian Joyce, Brian Weasler, Christina Armstrong, D. Bruce Moore, Davey Mitchell, Diego, Disney Saints fan, Eric Canales, Fedor Stamen, Glenn Hewlett, Grant Leedy, Jason Bucata, Jason Downs, Jenna Farron, Ken Reichert, Kyle Etter, Malfunct, Michael Pitsley, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Richard Lorbieski and Boyson Technologies, Rob Inman, Stephen Wagner, Steve Bjork, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tom C., Tom S., and Tim Lindner. Thank you so much, patrons. CoCo Talk is an unscripted live broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own and not necessarily those of the CoCo Talk show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds encouraged, sense of humor recommended. If any off-color comments were made, we're sorry.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCo Talk.
This is CoCo Talk, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks, grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world.
Welcome to CoCo Talk, episode 166. Today's special topic is Marentes Rally SG premiere.
CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world.
Hey, maybe this will work a little better. Let's see if this button works. So, do we need to redo the intro?
Sure. Oh, yeah, I'm hearing it now.
Do it
Okay.
again.
Hey,
Take two.
one more
Take
button.
two.
Okay.
It's time with feeling.
This time with feeling.
Thanks for
All
doing the
right.
rehearsal.
Hey, you know, we should start the show soon.
Yeah, how about we do that? Here we go.
There it is. Oh, okay. No. Ah!
CoCo Talk would like to thank our patrons who sponsor our show each week. So warm gratitude goes to Al Hartman, Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Blair Ledoux, Brendan Donaghy, Brian Joyce, Brian Weasler, Christina Armstrong, D. Bruce Moore, Davey Mitchell, Diego, Disney Saints fan, Eric Canales, Fedor Stamen, Glenn Hewlett, Grant Leedy, Jason Bucata, Jason Downs, Jenna Farron, Ken Reichard, Kyle Etter, Malfunct, Michael Pitsley, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Richard Lorbieski and Boyson Technologies, Rob Inman, Stephen Wagner, Steve Bjork, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tom C., Tom S., and Tim Lindner. Thank you so much, patrons. CoCo Talk is an unscripted live broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own and not necessarily those of the CoCo Talk show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds encouraged, sense of humor recommended. If any off-color comments were made, we're sorry.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCo Talk.
This is CoCo Talk, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks, grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world.
Welcome to CoCo Talk, episode 166. Today's special topics is Nick Marentes' Rally SG premiere.
CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCo Talk is rocking the 8-bit world.
And we're back. Hopefully everybody can hear us now.
Take two.
All right. So are we ready to start the show now?
No, but let's do it anyway.
Better, but I think there's still room for improvement.
Just run that loop again.
I don't think any amount of practice is going to make it any better.
So is the show better with or without sound?
Probably
It
without.
depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I think Jim Brain would probably say without.
Yes.
All
All right.
Let's mute everybody then. It's easy.
All right. Let me make sure I got some of these buttons in the right place. I think so for now.
Also, it looks
All
like
right.
the chat fixed because that was an issue before the show started, but none of the chat from YouTube, it said it was coming through on the panel on the left there. But
Yeah, it did. All of a sudden it did.
yeah, so it was a problem on the server end or something. It wasn't us for a change.
It makes us wonder.
Ken's complaining we have audio now.
Yeah, well, can't please everybody.
Explain to him where the volume control is and just run it to 0.
Just tell him to be quiet with his canned food.
There's an X in the corner of your screen.
Okay. Well, I guess let's go ahead and get the introduction started.
Hi, I'm Ron Del Lowe from Arizona.
Okay, so starting in the middle of the screen from
Ron, you're
Arizona.
so shy.
All right, so in the upper corner we got Patrick Euland.
No idea how I got there, but I can find the unmute button. Hi, folks.
Hello.
And next across is your host for today. Next over is Mark Overhoster.
Hi there.
Apple
I'm the
guy.
Apple guy. Glad to be here.
Except you're out of uniform today. No, the headgear.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Hey.
Now we recognize you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now things are going in the right direction.
I picture him
Yeah,
as a
the-
deranged doctor for some reason. Could you imagine you sit down and he's
I think he was one of the guest stars in Bedlam, that old text adventure game, wasn't he?
I think the facial recognition system will work properly now that he's got the glasses on.
Yeah. All right. Next up is L. Curtis Boyle with the news.
Hello, everyone.
All right. Say,
Hello.
Kara's return. Then we have Nick Mariota.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here.
All right. And traveling on the road, Jason Reichard, Coco Man.
Good afternoon from the highways and byways of America.
That's about right.
He's in the Matrix.
Brought to you by Sprint.
All right.
The Matrix.
Next up, Ron Delvaux.
Yes. Again.
Again,
Hello.
that's right. Now you're in the right order.
All right.
You're out of
And,
order. You're all
all
out
right.
of order.
Then we got R. Allen Murphy joining us.
Howdy from Texas.
All right.
Hey.
And then Kara's return, line feed. Next up,
Ding.
David O'Connor from Down Under.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can see me up the right way and not upside down.
Yeah,
David,
we flipped
you look
the
great.
screen around. Okay, and then bottom row middle is David Veery.
Hey guys, how we doing?
Hey, David,
pretty good.
otherwise known as Mr. Dave 6809. You may know him by that name.
You may.
All right, and then last but
said.
not least, Nick Marentes.
Good day, everyone, and sorry in advance.
Oh, we're
Show
gonna
it
give
for
you
yourself being on here. I'm not sure which.
we're going to give you the spotlight a little later anyway.
We're
That's what
sorry.
you're apologizing for.
Counting on you, Nick, to save this train wreck.
Are you previewing Donut Dilemma 6?
Well, it's got something to do maybe with the title of the show.
Isn't it Donor Dilemma 13, Baker's
Dump
Dozen
stuff.
Revenge?
Ooh.
Good game.
All right, so let's run with the intros done. Let's go run our public service announcement, and then we'll you ready with news, Curtis?
Oh, sure.
Okay, let me go ahead and run this, and then we'll get into the news.
Hi, this is Eddie Zerbinski from beautiful Quebec City. Vous écoutez CoCoTALK.
As you're enjoying CoCo Talk, we also want to remind you about the CoCo Discord server. This is a place where people come to connect, to ask questions, to provide answers, to share information, and to socialize. So when you're done, why don't you head on over to the CoCo Discord server and we'll continue the conversation there. The easy to remember link is discord.cocotalk.live. See you on Discord. CoCo123 is the Glenside Color Computer Club community newsletter that's been in publication since 1985. While the Rainbow magazine may be gone, it doesn't mean you still can't have a cool CoCo periodical. Head on over to the Glenside Color Computer website at glensideccc.com and then click on the Documents link to view all the past issues of the CoCo123 newsletter. Not only can you read all of the past and present issues, we'd also love to hear some submissions from you. So if you'd like to send an article, a column, something to talk about, maybe even a program listing, send an email to glensideccc@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. The CoCo World Map is a cool community resource where you can view coconuts from around the world. Head on over to map.cocotalk.live and see where your fellow Coconutians happen to be living on the planet Earth. If you would like to submit yourself to be on the CoCo Map, send an email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live, and we look forward to seeing you on the CoCo Map. Hey guys, it's Stevie Strode. If you've been watching CoCo Talk for a while, hopefully you understand that everyone is welcome to join this show. You don't need an impressive resume to get on. You just need to enjoy the CoCo and be willing to talk about it. There is no wrong way to CoCo. There is no wrong way to be a fan of the CoCo. There's no wrong way to be on CoCo Talk. You just have to want to talk CoCo. So if you would like to join us, then reach out to us on our Discord server, which is discord.cocotalk.live, or send an email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live, and let's get you on the show and let's talk about the CoCo.
Hi, I'm Tim, and you're watching CoCo Talk Live. And I'm playing Daggereth online like that idiot from the book.
Can you dial back on the condescension there as you respond there?
and L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
All right, so I'll stop share here so you can pick up the share.
Shall do. And just before we do that, I just wanted to add on to Steve's little blurb there about anybody can come on the show. That is absolutely true. We do ask, though, that you try to get on the Discord call a little bit before the show starts, because if people start breaking in the show in the middle of the time, of course, it gets kind of messy and stuttery. Not that we're already doing that already, but it's even worse.
And you missed the introduction.
I just want to make sure that people know that you should try to come in early if you possibly can. If you have something that you have to do beforehand and you might have to join the show late, please notify the hosts way ahead of time so that we know to let you in when you come in. But basically, if you show up like right when the show starts or after the show is already undergoing, unless you've made special pre-arrangements, we probably won't put you on because it just breaks the flow of the show too much. So I just wanted to mention that because I know some people have been wondering about that. Do they show up like literally on the second the show starts and want to jump on? It just becomes a bit of a hassle. So,
or way after the fact.
Okay. Gosh. I'm hearing some echo.
Yeah, we're picking up some background vocals.
Somebody, yeah.
A female.
Someone hit
Somebody's
the
other
punch
half, maybe.
I hear it stop now. It sounds like. Hey, not a lot of news this week. Now there might have been more, and I missed it. I had to really rush it this morning because I was running way behind schedule. So if anybody had any cool stories that they saw that I missed here, just let me know. First one up, Canadian Retro Things has a new video out showing him hooking up his giant Panasonic TV radio cassette all-in-one unit that he's demoed before, but this time he hooks it up to his MT10. That's the unit there. So it's got the little tiny screen on the bottom left there, cassette recorder built in. And he'd hooked it up to the CoCo, and he could get it to load programs, but he couldn't get it to save properly. It would always IO error. I'll give you one spoiler on this one as he goes through it. He did figure out how to fix it up enough that actually he could do recording. And he's noticeably moved when he actually gets it to load the program back that he saved on it, because he's been fighting with this for a couple of weeks. So it's a rather interesting video. So keep up the good work with that. Up next, Davey Mitchell, who was in the YouTube chat earlier, so if he's on there and wants to throw any extra comments, he can. But basically posted a link on his blog, Davey's Retro Corner, in the Dragon Facebook group, and I just took the link straight from his blog here. This entry talks about a 3D terrain generating program that was originally from the Dragon user magazine, and it even includes hidden line removal. Now, it's written in BASIC, so it's not exactly quick or anything, but you actually can get it to program it to do different terrain types. As you can see on these two, there's a fairly simple terrain on the top and there's a fairly complex one on the bottom. But it's a basic listing with an actual explanation in the article of how this works. So if somebody wants to take this technique and then switch it over to assembly to speed it up here, I think you could do some pretty interesting stuff, because we do have some wireframe games, but most of the time they're not hidden line removal. Like you can see the lines right through the object. Like if you look at Rommel 3D or Rommel's Revenge or Space Wreck by Spectral Associates, it's basically just raw 3D lines. Or that demo that Eric Gaverlick was doing upgrades to from Hot Cocoa from back in '83. So this is actually one that does the proper removal, so you can do proper terrain where you don't see through the back lines. So that, I found that pretty interesting. I might have to take a look at that, when I get caught up in all my Nitrous 9 manual updates and things here. So, because I think you could do some pretty interesting things with that if we can get the speed up.
Hey, Curtis.
Yep.
I just wanted to interject that a couple of months ago on, I think it was Facebook, somebody mentioned a book that's done for the Apple II and actually the IBM. But I've looked at the Apple soft examples, and it could probably pretty easily be converted over for the color computer. Anyway, it's called Microcomputer Graphics by Roy E. Myers, and he has complete things, including hidden line removal and doing clipping on regions and being able to, present objects that look 3D in a 2D space and stuff like that. So it's a really, really, really good book, and you can find it.
Okay, and it's just general algorithms, so it would work on pretty well anything then.
Well, it's basic, and I think there's some machine code, but it's all documented. And so, I've looked at it, and it's pretty easy to convert the basic over for the Tandy color computers basic. So it's it's AppleSoft, which is Microsoft Basic. So yeah, I've actually thought about so I thought about going through and rewriting the Tandy code so it would match up with the stuff in the book, and so then you could use the book and the Tandy code to do stuff. Anyway, it's like I said, it's got chapters on doing that exact sort of stuff.
Okay, that's
and explains
cool.
it.
I will mention that Dragon User Magazine actually has been completely archived on the Internet Archive too, so all those issues are actually available for people who want to go through them. So there's 2 resources there, I guess, to do the hidden line removal. It'd be interesting to compare the two. Like maybe they're done the same way, probably written around the same time.
Yeah, I would think so. This is copyright 82.
Yeah, and the Dragon one was I think 83 or 84, so pretty close to the same time frame. Next step. The Trash Talk podcast has a game programming contest coming on. I think it was Brian Weasler that mentioned that we should probably mention it because it covers the CoCo as well as the Model 1, 2, 3, etc. And basically, it's based on one of the last public Trash Talks where they had a bunch of guests from all over the place, including a bunch of us CoCo people. And they were saying, the CoCo people, we usually get 4 or 5 at least, commercial games out per year, whereas the Model 1, 3 camp maybe gets one every couple of years type thing. So they decided to do a game competition, but they're actually allowing the CoCo to be one of the entries as well. And there's actually prizes, and they're hardware prizes. So it's your choice. If you win, you can get some of the special hardware boards, like hard drive adapters and stuff for the Tier C Model 1. But they also have stuff like the ORC 90 compatible card for the CoCo or a CoCo floppy disk controller that you can get to it too, or through it too. So. And this one has a fairly long deadline, and they're kind of hinting, with all the COVID shutdowns and stuff worldwide, you should have plenty of time to work on these things, right? So I think the deadline is, the end of November or something. Yeah, November 30th is the closing date. So lots of time to do it, but definitely if you've got Model 1 and 3 stuff as well, feel free to do that as well as the CoCo stuff, because they definitely need some more, game programmers there. There's only been 1 or 2 games I've seen in the last couple of years. But anybody's allowed to enter. So I think it's a good idea. The fact that they've actually got some hardware prizes is kind of cool too. So just hit their website there, which I'm sure Mark is posting into the chat, so you can grab the link and take a look.
Already done.
Cool. Next up, Tim Halloran has a video demonstrating him powering his CoCo 2, which he's been working on for a while. But the different thing here is he's powering it from USB. So I don't know if I get.
I don't think there's any sound.
Yeah.
Oh, I probably forgot to share the sound again. Oh, I'll just fast forward here then a bit. So obviously he's got a CoCo VGA in there too. And then he kind of goes to the explanation. That's my 3.5-minute video. So if you're interested in doing that, and he gets into the technicalities of it, but here's is actually running off of USB instead of the regular power supply.
That's must be a fairly hefty USB supply to run that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not a hardware guy, so you guys will have to comment on that.
Usually USB outlets are limited to either 500 milliamps or 1 amp. And I don't imagine that would be enough to run a CoCo.
You can do 2.4 if you really fudge it, but where all the salt voltage is coming from and stuff, does that all work? I haven't thought about that stuff in years, but you've got to come up with 9 volts or something. And
they use a charge pump with capacitors usually. The Max 3232 chips don't need a 12-volt source.
Well, obviously it wouldn't be running off a computer USB port because they're limited to 1 amp or sometimes 500 milliamps. But an external power supply, you could.
It might be a wall plug USB maybe, or something like they use for charging phones, or right? Yeah, that might make some sense.
Yeah, I just thought in addition to 5 volts, you had to provide something else, but maybe I'm wrong. It's been 20 years.
Well, because the modulator needs 8 volts.
The CoCo 1 has a 12 volts on the supply, but the 2 and 3 don't, and that's why the things like the graphic pad that run on 12 volts don't work with the CoCo 2 or 3 unless you have an MPI, which has 12 volts.
Right. But then I think they also did 9 volts from the salt chip to power the modulator. I think someone said there's something weird in there that I kind of half remember.
Well, if the USB is supplying the input to the salt chip, then the salt chip can still do its thing.
Right, and if you're using CoCo VGA, who cares if the modulator works, right? So,
but I think the salt's using a negative voltage, though. But
anyway, he's active on Facebook. So if you guys have any questions of how he did it or anything, or technical comments or technical questions or comments on it, then feel free to engage him on Facebook on that. I wouldn't mind getting him on the show to explain it at some point either. So But yeah, it just sounded an interesting way because I know some people have blown power supplies, and for some of us less technically inclined, it might be easier just to plug in a USB wall wart and go from there. So if it's not too complicated to set it up that way.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Should have stopped it with his eyes open. He would appreciate that, I'm sure.
Next up, we talked about this channel before, and I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. The guy's real name is Keith. He calls himself Chibi Akumas or something like that on YouTube. He does a ton of these assembly language tutorials for a variety of chips. He's done 6502, 6 to 8000, Z80 or Z80. He's in Britain, so Z80 in his case. So he's been doing the 609. We covered his first one a couple weeks ago. So this time he's done part 2, and this is a fairly heavy one. It's going through all the various addressing modes of the 6809, and this is more like a reference video. It's not really a tutorial per se. I mean, it teaches you what they do, but it goes at rapid fire because the 6809 has so many addressing modes compared to most 8-bit CPUs of the day. And when you start getting to stuff like, extended indirect and indirect indexed and stuff, it gets complicated, which even you can see he's trying to figure out exactly what it's doing in a couple of spots too. So, but if you want a really good run through of all the addressing modes the 609 is capable of, it's a really good video for that. And he's got sample bits of code for every single one with, memory dumps. So if you're doing indirect stuff, you can see where it's getting its data from. So, and he's continuing. He's got many more 609 ones to, tutorials to do in the future. He's ultimately wants to eventually write a Vectrex game, which also uses the 6809. That's the vector-based video game console system from the early 80s, which is fairly rare and pretty cool. And lastly, we've got Ed Snyder, because he's not making enough hardware yet. So this is loosely based on his upgrade to the MC10 that he did for Stevie actually recently here. We made the 8K mod where actually you got 8K RAM, but he also modded the circuitry so the VDG can actually access the whole thing, because the way it's originally wired up, it only does 4K maximum. So you can't use P mode 3, you can't use P mode 4. Even though the video chip's fully capable of doing it in the MC10, you can't actually link the RAM up to it, so you can't get the full screen. So he upgraded Stevie's, I believe, with 8K and then fixed the video circuitry. And his board here, which once again has his self-portrait in the left right-hand side there, is basically a drop-in. You have to desolder some chips in the MC10, unfortunately. Here it kind of shows where it lays out onto the circuit board. And but once it's in, basically this one will give you 32K of RAM, and it fixes the VDG thing so you can actually access the higher mode screens. I'm not sure if it lets you use the entire 32K for video or not. I didn't see him detail that. I'm not knowing Ed, probably it does, which means you could even do page flipping and stuff like that, animations where you can actually draw on one screen while leaving the other one displayed. I'm hoping it does that too, because then the MC10 can get some wicked games for it, or other fancy graphical effects. So this is still in the prototyping stage, not for sale or anything yet, but looks promising. So any of our MC10 users out there will want to get a pretty decent upgrade, and I think it might still work with the MCX 128. I'm not sure, but I'll have to let Ed explain that too as well. And anyway, that's it for news. Did anybody else see anything on Facebook or on the listserv or anything of newsworthy note that I missed? Because like I said, I did rush this morning.
No.
No? Okay. In that case, the news is now done.
Okay. All right, so we're back to there. And next up is High Score Challenge will be up here in just a bit. We're going to run a couple of new to Discord, and we got a new CoCo Thoughts. And then we'll get into the High Score Challenge. How's that sound?
Sounds awesome. Thank you, Mark.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord This Week? Please welcome Rich N. Rich Natilli, who's been a CoCo enthusiast since the 80s and is now working on 6809 assembly with MAME on his Mac. Cranky65, Donald Brobeck, the CoCo was his second computer, and he's working on setting up a CoCo Pi. Charlie 2020 got his first CoCo 3 in 1990. He was published in the world of 68 micros, and he's a fan of OS 9 and DriveWire. And last, but certainly not least, please welcome Neil from the CoCo Crew podcast. And a very special thanks go to Alpin Grace. Voice on Tech, our CoCo Talk patrons, David Ladd, Paul Fiscarelli, Rob Inman, and Terry Steggy, for boosting the CoCo Discord server. Join us on Discord at discord.cocotalk.live.
And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gines. A rare misstep for the rugby circle, Death Trap is one of the most inaccurate movie adaptations ever. I mean, where's Michael Caine and Superman?
High Score Challenge.
All right. Oh, you can still go straight into the video if you want. All right, guys, we had another fantastic week with the GameOn Challenge. 20 people playing Death Trap. R. Alan Murphy, 110. David Croker, 2511. Mark Bosley, 5434. Joshua, 11155. Rogelio, 13074. Damon, 6872. Graham W, 20,187. Me, 21,799. Cat Lord, 25,558. Alpengrace, 27,263. Jim Ride, 30,337. OG Stevie Stroh, 34,772. Tom C, 36,204. Canadian Retro Things, 38,703. Tasman, 47,579. L. Curtis Boyle, 69,117. Frodo, 70,939. Diego, 84,753. Buck Owens, 90,661. And at the top, Mr. Dave for the first time in number one with 107,243, and he rolled the score over, which I thought was pretty funny. He had to tell me that the screenshot was inaccurate because it rolls over at 99. So congratulations, Mr. Dave. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yay, Mr.
Also,
Dave.
I want to give you a last-minute update on that, too. Frodo in the chat mentioned he's a bit late, decided to have one last go at Death Trap, and he finally beat it. So other than Buck, he's actually beaten the game and got the congratulations, too.
No, Buck finished the game. Oh, I see.
So in addition to, like, Buck was the only other one I think we did, but Frodo did it as well. And yeah, I think if I understand his text here in the chat correctly, he was actually streaming it on Twitch. So you can go review it afterwards, too.
Hey, Mark, I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, Frodo says he rolled the score over, too.
Yes, it rolls over 100,000. So let me just share my screen.
So the author just didn't think anyone would ever get that much score, huh?
So for the first time, our user score is higher than what was in Rainbow.
No
Rainbow
way.
was 95, and Mr. Dave blew that out of the water.
And so did Frodo.
And Frodo, yes. So here's some gameplay that from Buck Owens, and here he is getting the last diamond.
Going nuts.
And he got the congratulations. That made me wince when I first saw that, but yeah, because he got so there's the congratulations screen, and it just flickers green and orange, and so
Just to spell congratulations. It's a typo.
Yeah, well, software developers were testers and QA back, and
yeah, we weren't strong in English back then. I can vouch for that.
That's why we went to computers.
That's why we became computer programmers.
So yeah, and actually Buck Owens did play again after the scores were submitted, and he was going to go for wrapping over 100,000, but he couldn't resist getting the last diamond and finishing at I think he got 97 as a final score. So he just couldn't turn down that last diamond. So yeah, interesting game, kind of polarizing. We had people who really liked it and people who weren't so fond of it. I know I liked it. My big issue with it is the amount of randomness. You're just put in situations that no matter how much skill you have, you just cannot get out of. So that was my gripe with the game. But it was still strangely fun. Anybody agree or disagree?
I tried to avoid a lot of the randomness. Like I avoided those little question marks.
But even hyperspace is, I assume it's kind of random. Although I don't know if the game had preset places you can hyperspace to or not.
Well, it wasn't such a bad random, but the question block, it would blow you up at the wrong time, or
yeah.
I mean, if you needed to, okay, but otherwise, yeah, it could be bad.
There was some strategy, like if you're running out of fuel and you knew death was coming, you could either run out of fuel and stay where you are, or stop and wait for the square to get you, in which case you'd hyperspace. So you did have some decisions you could make. And I guess one of the goals is to get those extra tanks, because basically you know you're going to be going through tanks like crazy.
Yeah,
So
and some of these massive tank hordes are you have to kill yourself a couple times to do it. So it also depends, like, do I have enough lives left to even make it there?
Right.
So there's some strategy involved, but.
So it's basically designed to you're going through lives and having to sacrifice lives to get more lives. So I don't know. Overall, I thought it was interesting. It was a game I enjoyed as a teen.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. A couple of things I wanted to mention too. One thing I had not realized, because until we finally read the directions here, I didn't know you had to collect 4 diamonds to actually win the game. Because back in the day, I didn't have a clue. But the fact that blue square, the more diamonds you get, the faster he gets. Because at the beginning, you can maneuver around him. You can kind of like suck him into falling up to a certain point. Then you can just go right around and get past him. By the time you've got 3 diamonds, he's going the same speed you are, and he can go diagonally through walls. So he will catch you and kill you unless you can hit a hyperspace. So that changed the strategy quite a bit playing wise. And then I think it was Buck was looking through and he found some old ads for Death Trap. And apparently the original plan was that they would sell upgrade discs or cassettes with entirely new mazes. I don't know if that was ever actually done. I've never seen one or even seen a hint of one, but he did find the actual ad from Rugby Circle stating that was the plan.
That makes me wonder if this was designed in such a way that you could have custom made levels or whatever.
I would say it is. Yeah. I mean, maybe one of us has to disassemble at some point, figure out how it works, and then somebody else can devise a maze that's even more sinister.
I was going to say less, no question marks, a little less random, but more, I don't know. But yeah, that'd be interesting to find out. The other thing you could, when at the very beginning, especially when the square was small, it was slower, you could use it to get rid of some of the, especially the Ds.
Because it's destructive, right? Anything it goes over, it destroys. Is that right?
Including diamonds. I tested that out for science.
Yeah.
And yes, it does destroy diamonds as well. So you don't want to do that. But so you could use, so there was some strategy involved.
Yeah, because if you get stuck in an area at an early level where he's still running pretty slow and you're surrounded by things that are going to kill you, then you could actually like maneuver him to go free you up, and then you could and run around him and then get out of there without dying.
Yeah. Some of the maze layouts had me question what they were thinking. Like they'd have a corridor with a map followed by another map, and it was like that doesn't seem terribly useful. So some of the design had me scratching my head a bit.
I think that was to show you 2 different parts. Like after you went down, I know which one you're talking about. You can actually see a chunk of a totally different set of the maze below further. So it kind of gives you a heads up. Because of course, back then, the full maze like we have on my website or on the archive didn't exist. So all you had was these little map squares you could hit, and that's the only way you could kind of get an idea where you're going.
And it was funny. We had Buck Owens doing some analysis of the scoring, and it turned out that with the 6309, you actually got higher bonuses for the diamonds, I believe it was, which is kind of interesting. So
I got to figure what's going on there, because I can't figure out how that would even work, unless he's doing illegal instructions or something that's falling through somewhere. But because basically the diamond score is supposed to be based on how many of the P things you get, the point things, because that's kind of like a multiplier for your diamonds. And if you get a ton of those, then your score goes way up when you get a diamond compared if you haven't ran over any of the P squares. So
yeah, so it's kind of interesting. They must do something funky to calculate it. Well, there's some randomness to it too, though. But yeah.
Because I know once I read the directions and discovered that the P, like my scores were sitting around the 15 to 20,000 range, no matter how good I did. But I didn't know about getting the Ps. When I started going out of my way to get the P point squares and then got a diamond afterwards, then I noticed my score literally doubled or tripled from what it was previous.
I noticed a lot of the screenshots, people were doing pretty nice looking palette hacks. Basically in this screen mode, palettes 5 through 8 would control the colors that you see. So a lot of people were changing
I was a purist. I left mine on the original. So
yeah, period correct. Yeah, I know. So so like I said, it was a bit of a polarizing game, but we still had a really good turnout, and I appreciate everybody who took part. And there were some interesting discussions and interesting discoveries and things that didn't even know from back in the day.
Yeah, and I will mention that as far as the polarization goes, I mean, the Amigos have now started up game challenges for all the different shows that they ended up having to postpone / cancel for now because of Bolt's new job. And they're having the same problem where, or not problem, I guess, but the same issue, where certain games, people will try and go, this game's not for me, I'm not participating this week or what this 2-week period or whatever it is. So that's to be expected. Not every game is going to be everybody's cup of tea. Yeah.
I don't want people to play because they feel obligated to. I mean, if there's something that really does not interest you, that's okay. Hopefully next week it'll be something that's more appealing.
Yeah. And I do have a question for you, Nick. There are some interesting, unique games in the CoCo, but they're not terribly score based. So is that something we could cover and just not worry about score just to get people experience it? Or is that kind of part of the purpose? Or
it would be, I mean, because we don't really emphasize score. I know we do the ranking at the end. That's just for bragging rights and just for fun. But I mean, yeah, certainly one of the goals of this is to just experience games we may not have run across in the past. So yeah, I'd definitely be open to entertaining different ways of playing or different just to get more exposure to games. So.
Okay, yeah, because I think there's a few out there that could potentially be, very interesting to play. Probably not everybody's cup of tea, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I'll take the opportunity to remind you. I'm definitely open to suggestions. If there's a game you'd like to see featured, just send me a PM and I'll check.
Well, as soon as I get the cheat pokes, I'll let you know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's right. Curtis is not able to submit any recommendations. So, yeah. All right.
Frodo says, no, the hyperspaces are random, but at least you had a chance to get away from the square most of the time.
But I wonder if it was purely random, because there was one diamond inside a square. And if it was purely random, the chances of hitting that diamond would be pretty remote. So there must be predetermined squares that you hyperspace to.
Yeah. And Robert Allen Murphy has a good suggestion. If somebody does figure out the format of the map and it was designed to be easily replaced, as they were planning on doing back in the day, is that somebody should come up with a maze editor for it, whether it's on
That'd
a
be
PC
awesome.
or a CoCo, and then you can actually just create your own.
And maybe add some 2-player action and network play at the same time, and then we'll have a lot of fun. And,
exactly.
And be an ability to shoot.
And why? Yeah, to make it a 3D maze. What the hell?
Yeah, with those couple minor changes.
Let's just create a new game.
Yeah, it is a little frustrating. You're driving a tank and you can't shoot.
You think Ben Drakes could help us out with the 3D part?
Yeah, the virtual reality version of it, you have to actually walk on the platform.
You're driving the tank.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's just an original game. I mean, this is another one where I haven't seen anything really like it.
Yeah, that's why I chose it. I try to have original games as well as ports. So last week was a port. So this week I wanted something a little more original. So,
okay,
are we ready to move on? So I have 2 things left. First will be the game for this coming week. It's kind of a port. It's inspired by an arcade game. Anybody recognize that?
Zaxxon. No, I'm just kidding.
Looks like a
Zaxxon with canoes. Yeah.
That's right.
Gana Buana,
it does that. Yes.
which supports the Sound Speech Pack.
It does. So our game next week is Gana Buana. I hate when that menu comes down and I can't. There we go.
How do you spell that?
Kind of
There it
loosely
is.
based on Congo Bongo, I guess. Very
Yes.
With extra W's. Guana Buana. Yeah.
Yes. So that's our game for this week. And I'm also going to pre-announce a game coming up in about 4 weeks. And the reason I'm pre-announcing it is because it's a commercial game and there's no digital option. So we pretty much have to buy it. And that game, it's a really good game. It's called Bomb Threat, written by Rick Adams. And it was actually a game that he wrote to be released. And then Tandy didn't pick up on it because the CoCo 2 was nearing its end of life cycle. So it's a really good game. There's a couple ways you can get it. It's on CD from rickadams.org/bombthreat. And also this past week, Neil Blanchard from the CoCo crew started creating cartridges of Bomb Threat. And he's
Cool.
he's in Canada. So that's why we're giving 4 weeks before we'll do the actual game. So if you're interested, try and buy it relatively soon. And to get it from Neil, sorry, I clicked wrong. To get it from Neil, you just send an email to Neil, Neil, at CoCoCrew.org. And like I said, he's in Canada. It's $30. I believe that's US.
Yeah.
And then the disc version from Rick is $20 US plus shipping. And Rick will get a cut of the proceeds from the cartridge versions. So yeah. And if you want to see any gameplay, Mark will post a link in the channel, and you can see when Stevie debuted this game. It's a cool action puzzle game. You're basically moving boxes away from these bombs that are going off, because as the bombs go off, they take out anything around them. So you want to move all the boxes safely away from them as these bombs are exploding.
Some of the boxes have bombs in them, and that gets revealed as you play. So what looks safe isn't.
Yes, and you can push the boxes, you can pull them, you can like pull them backwards, and it's a really fun game.
Pull one box, but you can push a bunch
You can
of
push
boxes.
multi, yes. So that'll be our game, like I said, in 4 weeks. So if you're interested in taking part, pick up either the disc version or the cartridge version, and then we'll be ready to go in 4 weeks' time.
So when will that be? Like 4 weeks from now?
4
So
weeks, yeah. So
about the end of July.
The end of July. Yeah, it should be like the 25th or so, something like that, or 20, whatever, however the calendar lines up.
I'll mention a couple other things too. The game was originally sold on cartridge by the CoCo Crew when Rick first recompleted it, because he'd lost the original source. He only had a videotape showing the old gameplay. This time around, though, Neil's actually doing it with a different cartridge, because I think the originals were done with the orange plastic molded cartridges that they got made. Yeah, and this is like a nice yellow one, so it's a unique version. This is the first time they've been selling the cartridge version of Bomb Threat for quite a while. Actually, they sold out of the previous run. And it includes the box and the instructions and everything else too, as you see here.
And I let Neil know that we're going to be doing this as Game of the Week. He was very pleased and said thank you. He seemed very appreciative that we were having this as Game of the Week. So
I have a tip to make it so you can win the game potentially. Before you put the cartridge in, be sure and blow on the end that goes into the MPI of the computer.
That's right.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, as I mentioned briefly here, Rick had started doing this game back in the early 80s, or mid 80s, I should say, and was going to try to sell it through Tandy. Then Tandy didn't pick it up, and they actually shopped it out to a couple of third-party ones, and they didn't want it either. Partly because of the CoCo 3, and partly because I think it just was a bit too different. It's the original game, once again, not based on any arcade game. But we have interviewed Rick, and Rick has actually been demoing it and showing the programming progress as he was developing the game, redeveloping it, a few years back. So there's a couple of really good interview videos with Rick, and also some just regular episodes of CoCo Talk, kind of going through the evolution of the game as it became a reality again. So any of the newer viewers here that have not watched any of that history of Bomb Threat, I would highly recommend you go back through the CoCo Talk catalog on YouTube and watch some of those, and including the official release time when the first version of the cartridge came out, because it's a very fascinating history on the whole thing.
Well, I don't want to give spoilers, but isn't it true, Curtis, that Rick lost the source code and recreated it from video?
Yeah, he had a video because his kids liked it, and they recorded a video of them playing it, and then he went trying to find the code again. We got some echo here. I'm not sure what's going on there, but yeah, he had to recreate the game from scratch, like reprogram it without any of the original code, and all he had to work from was this, videotape with wavy lines and crap in it. But I think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah. All right, and once again, the game next week is Ganabuana. So thanks, guys, for your support in this segment, and hope you have a nice, have fun playing, and we'll see you next week.
So we have some GameOn news.
Yes, we do, and the last one will involve some Australian named Nick Marentes premiering a video for his new game, which I will be playing in its entirety. And then we'll let him comment on it, and then the rest of us will poo-poo it. I mean, praise it. So.
All right, there we are. We're back.
Can I say one quick thing? If you already bought Bomb Threat on disc from when Rick released it a couple years ago, you're fine. You don't have to buy another copy. This is just for people who don't have the game who want to take part. So if you already have it, you're good to go.
Yeah. Now we should mention the cartridge version. I think there was 2 releases because a bug was discovered after the very first run.
Yes, our very own Grant Leedy found it.
Yeah. So if you have the original cart version, you might want to get a replacement, which I think Rick would just send you because you've already paid for it the first time. So, but I just wanted to mention that because there is the original run of cartridges actually had a bug burnt in the ROM that was fixed later, and the later run of cartridges before even this new one had that bug fixed. So.
Thank you, Curtis. I didn't want me to step on you. I want to clear that up.
No problem. This time I'm going to try to remember to share sound.
I got yelled at last week, remember? So.
I don't think that worked. Just a sec here. That's the window I wanted. Okay, first up on GameOn news is Paul Shoemaker, who did that dungeon crawler he had to pull because of some copyright issues with the artwork, which is too bad because it was an awesome looking game for the CoCo 1 and 2. So this time he's working on a CoCo 3 dungeon crawler, and this tile set here is kind of showing a preview of what he's kind of planning on. But this time, as he mentions, the tile set is based on a 256 color acid kit that he purchased from Gabe Nev Market. So it's going to be legit this time. So he doesn't have to worry about it getting pulled down. So he's been working on, converting 256 color down to 6-bit, 64 color RGB values for the CoCo 3. So that's kind of a sneak preview of what he's planning on. I think it's going to be similar to the original game that he did for the CoCo 1 and 2, except enhanced for CoCo 3 graphics. I'm really looking forward to that. And I wish we could in some way resolve the issue we had with the previous person. He actually had reached out to him, and basically they said, there was no way they're going to allow the use of the artwork, clip artwork that he'd used. I'm hoping we have some good artists in the CoCo community here that maybe can just redesign some of the monsters and stuff so that he can re-release the game legally later on. So if any of you listening now, because that happened, a while ago, anybody that's new that actually is able to draw some fairly decent artwork in the 2-color P Mode 4 screen, maybe get in contact with them and work out getting some replacement artwork from him. Then he can re-release that game because it was an awesome game, but it was pulled pretty quickly because of the legal issues. Okay, next up. Neil, of course, is releasing Bomb Threat back on cartridge. I totally new to me just now. But as mentioned, it's a really good original game. Order it from Neil. In case you forgot the email address, it's actually on the Facebook post as well. So you can get in contact with him there. Now, Neil's also releasing another cart, 3D Monster Maze, which is by Evan Wright. Same guy who did Hunt the Wumpus and some other games. This is based on the Sinclair Spectrum ZX81 game, which was a little black and white game with a 3D maze you wanted through, and you have this Tyrannosaur thing trying to chase you down and eat you type thing. So the CoCo version here actually comes, and it's also $30 on cartridge. This one actually comes, and I'm not sure what the reason for the 2 different versions of the case is, but he's got 2 different colors of the cartridge, and he's got 2 different covers for the actual box. And I'm not sure if there's anything else special between the versions, or if it's just to make 2 different unique ones. One is the blue cartridge, which is just a plain blue cartridge. The other one's a translucent cartridge. You can kind of see through it, which I think is pretty cool. So I think that's obviously one I want to get. I'm not sure, like I said, about the box art. If maybe you can ask if you can get one of each. I'm not sure if there's any difference between them. It doesn't look like it, but it's a pretty decent game. We've previewed it here a while ago while Evan was working on it. Now, Evan just this morning or just last night, I think, released a new video kind of demonstrating the gameplay of it and also some of the improvements, because this is one thing, aside from kicking it up to color, because the ZX81 did not have color, he's also added in like mapping and some other features to it that are not in the original ZX Spectrum game at all. So it's actually a bit more originality added on to it, some value add. So I'll just play a little bit of that video here. And he actually used the graphic from his Hunt the Wumpus, his previous cartridge game, to have your hit reset color test.
CoCo VGA. So I just
are you guys getting any audio on that?
Off I go. Yep. That's it. It's nice and easy. So get yourself a CoCo VGA.
Is it loud enough?
Have one, and then you just hit any key to continue.
A little bit louder, maybe.
A bit louder, yeah.
And I'll pick hard here. And what it's going to do now is generate a maze for me.
Now, for what I remember, the ZX one does not have the map you can switch on and off.
I didn't really like so much. I love the concept of running around the maze. I love the concept of there's a monster out there that I'm trying to avoid. However, I always just ran around.
I think it did have the direction markers. I can't remember. I haven't played the ZX one in so long.
So I did a couple of things that are just a little bit different. So I put in the compass direction at the bottom.
Okay, so that is new.
You have
That's new to
some
the
idea
CoCo version.
of which you will
And
see.
then here's
that
the overhead
they
map
have
where you can actually kind of see
And it
where
may
you're going
seem
into
like a
maps
lot,
and
you
maze
just
as
run
you
around
go.
and
You don't
map
get to
view.
see the whole map at once.
However,
You only
if
get to
you
see
do
what
that,
you've
you're
actually
just
been
going to
through
run into
before.
walls, and it's not going to work out so well. Oh, that'll happen. Yeah, okay.
And there he just got eaten while he was too busy looking at his
let
map.
me retry that same maze here. Now, if I
Okay,
pull up
that
the map
previous
again, you'll
tank
see it
game.
saved all of my information from the last run through the maze. So the other purpose of the
This is what you want the
is
tank
that
game to
what
look
you
like,
can
the death
do
trap.
is carve out.
Yeah.
You try to
3D.
run through as much space as you can, and
And the little descriptions at the top, like Rex lies in wait, and Rex has seen
eventually
you, is based on the fact that if the dinosaur can see you down a hallway exposed, and it'll actually track you down like crazy. And if you kind of throw him off, then you might
the
wander
messages
around
will
until he
tell
finds you.
They
type
give
thing.
you kind of the relative.
And this was done in
distance
640
of the
by
monster
32 graphics I think, originally.
And
The
also,
Sinclair?
whether
No,
the
I think it was just
monster
on the
is
text
stuck
mode.
or not. Now,
Their
if the
text
monster does
mapped,
get stuck,
well, yeah, but
the
it ended up
monster will
being
eventually
64 by
teleport somewhere else
32 or something
and
ugly.
then start chasing you again.
Yeah.
So it's not like
I mean, for the Spectrum, it was one of the best looking games they ever
box in the
had. But
corner,
yeah,
and then
it was plain black and white. It was done all with text characters.
and then the game is just kind of boring.
And plus, it had that terrible keyboard
So,
to try to navigate with.
The idea here with the
I
map
know
is
way too many
it
things about
eventually-
Spectrum.
You can
or
eventually
about
map
Zex
out all of the
added.
space if you're careful.
Zex X 81s.
That,
You want to just call it a
will
ZX?
eventually be able to
Sorry.
find the monster here. And there's our footsteps.
Anyway, that game's now available too. So
I'm
actually,
just gonna let
Neil's
myself
had 2
be
cartridge
so
releases
you can
this
see what
week.
the animation
Well, 3 if you include the 2 different versions of it. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the translucent
And
one.
it
I want
gives
to see
you
what that
two
looks like. I don't know if that was a
opportunities
3D
to
printed
repeat
thing
the
or
same
some other
maze, so you don't lose your progress.
I haven't seen. Is there translucent
You
plastics
can-
available?
You can
3D
retry
printers?
that same level and keep your progress.
For
They
any
call
of
it
you who ever
clear.
have 3D
Now,
printer experience?
They call it
there
clear.
is a
It
super
ends up being
secret cheat key
translucent.
hiding,
Okay,
in-
but
in
not
the-
transparent. I'm assuming it's just kind of a
Yeah,
fuzzy
milky white.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So let me try.
Okay.
See if it works.
Anyway, that one's available for same price as Bomb Threat. So anybody who wants to add to their CoCo cartridge collection, you got 2 new ones this week.
Pretty cool.
Next up, Cuthbert Dragon was not terribly busy this week. They did a few ZX Spectrum games, actually. And then they did one other Dragon 32 one that I'd not seen before called Monsters, which is kind of based on Color Panic or Space Panic from the arcade. But there is some differences in the gameplay. So I'll play a little bit here. You'll have to let me know if this is too loud because it's got a fairly decent amount of sound effects. So the difference here is that you're not just trying to kill the monsters. You're actually trying to get these gold bits at the bottom and then take them up to your door and escape with them from the maze. So that's something that's not in Color Panic. And of course, as you
pretty fast.
Yeah. And of course, as you progress, it starts adding more monsters in and they start getting smarter. And some, at the beginning, they generally stay on their own levels. And in fact, when you drop them through a hole, they'll actually go back to their normal level and stay there for a bit. I've noticed on the later levels, though, they start wandering around vertically as well as horizontally, so that adds to the difficulty level. So that's one I hadn't seen before, and we'll have to see if we can convert that over and maybe, do some palette hacks to it, etc. Just because those are so much fun. Next up, Kieran has released a CoCo updated version of the Dragon Gang row tabs, which we have shown before. And there is a CoCo port, but I think it was a little bit buggy from what Bryza was saying. And the other thing about it is that the CoCo version stripped all the intro story, the intro loading screen, and a bunch of the other things that were on the original Dragon version. And what Karen has done just this, last couple of days is he's actually remade a new CoCo version you can download from here. This is his direct link to him, some of his stuff that he's hacked in the past. And he's actually got the CoCo version now with all that stuff restored back. So you get the loading screen, you get the full instructions and explanation of the storyline of the game, etc. So there's an updated version. Hopefully I'll put that on the archive as well, just because that seems to be where most people go. So for those who have not seen the original version with all the extra add-ons, there you go. Go download it for free. And lastly, I will let Nick do a bit of a voiceover before I start this to announce his new game for the CoCo 1, 2, 3 Dragon 64. And take it away, Nick.
Right, yeah. Okay,
Sorry, did I wake you up?
Yeah, you did. I since completing Gunstar and thanks to the lockdown, I've been busy, and I've already finished my next game called Rally SG, and it's a game based on the arcade game Rally X, where you drive a well, in my case, I've made it a little go-kart around a big track that pans around the screen, and you basically just have to collect or chase collect 10 flags on the map while avoiding the red cars that are out to get you. So fairly simple game, but this game I decided to actually, since I've been doing CoCo 3 games for years, I thought I'd revisit the old CoCo 1 and 2. I hadn't programmed a CoCo 1 and 2 game since Donut Dilemma back in 1986. So I thought I'll give a crack and see how much I remember in programming the old CoCo architecture. So this game will work on a CoCo 1, CoCo 2, CoCo 3, and a Dragon. So this one is for every color computer with at least 64K of RAM. So you need a 64K RAM to run it, and it uses the semi-graphics 8 in order to get color. One of my big beefs about the CoCo 1 and 2 is that it's not very colorful. So I decided, well, the only way to get good color is to use a semi-graphics mode, which gives you the full 8 colors and the all-important black background. It's got other limitations, but I sort of worked around all those. And the game is Rally SG, which I think Curtis has got a video there to play so that people can look at. So
you guys ready for the world premiere?
That's right. World premiere.
Push the button, Frank.
Hold your pants.
Yeah, let me know if I have to bump the volume up or down, because with YouTube it's kind of hard to tell.
Okay. That's the game there. Now on the right hand side is a radar display, which during my capture of the video didn't work correctly. One of the problems with semi-graphics is you can only have one color plus black per byte. So what I did over there on the right is to actually flicker one of the colors. So blue is the color in each byte, and I've got black, which represents the red cars that are going to be chasing you. And the flags, as you can see now, the yellow flag that had just appeared, the flags are a dark blue because I'm flickering between black and blue, which works fine on a normal monitor, but yeah, on my capture card it doesn't work too good, so hence it looks a bit bad. But it looks good on a real screen. Now, every level of the game, you've got to collect 10 flags, which are those yellow objects you see every now and then, and avoid the red cars that just got hit me just then. And so 10 flags. One of those flags is a special flag, and it'll be orange. And if you get that flag, it doubles the points that you collect per flag. So every flag you get a point. Well, it starts on 5 and works its way up 10, 15, 20. So the scores increment as you go. But if you get an orange flag, those scores double. Obviously, a tactic or a strategy in the game is to get the orange flag first if you can. Because the earlier you get the orange flag, the sooner you start collecting higher scores. And yeah, every level is just, there's the orange flag. And you can see in the top right there, the scores are indicated in orange now to let you know that they're being doubled. What else is there? So yeah, basically it's just that level after level of collecting flags. There are 4 big mazes in the game that it goes through as you play, and the cars, the number of red cars that chase you. Initially, it's two red cars, and then it goes to 4 red cars chasing you, up to 6 red cars. So, like I think it is now. There you go. He's collected everything there. Now with 6 cars up there, it's yeah, starts getting a bit tricky. And there's a challenge round as well. So level 3 and 6 and 9, I think I've got challenge levels. In these levels, you don't get any red cars chasing you, but you have a timer on the right there, as you can see. And it's a matter of trying to get all 10 flags before the timer runs out. And if you can get all 10 flags, you get the end of level bonus, which tallies up how many flags you did get and more points. So you can see on the right there, there's a little readout there. I've still got, in this case, I've got 4 more flags to find.
They don't tell you where the flags are. You got.
They don't tell you where the flags are. You've got to find them. So that's the challenge, going around the maze looking for the flags. Now, I think that in this next level, we're going to go to another maze. Yeah, so and the maze changes, and the colors change. Give a bit of variety. Now, being a CoCo 1 and 2, I haven't got the fancy sound effects that I had in, say, Gunstar, where I can have samples and all that. You don't have the timer that was available in the CoCo 3 to set up a good interrupt-driven sound routine. So I've tried to make a go-kart engine sound there, so which is that buzzing that you're hearing. And that's it. Game over. And I think that's the end of the video. So that's Rally SG. Now the coding is finished. I've done it now. It's all finished. I'm just doing some final tests and tweaks, I guess. And they're going to start designing on some packaging and some instructions and all that. So the game should be available maybe before August this year. So maybe end of July, around the end of July or early August. So that'll be coming out, and that'll be available as I've done in the past, a digital download or a CD. Now the digital downloads, this is only a small game, so it's all, I'm trying to keep the costs down. It'll be just a $5 digital download, so you can get the game emailed to you. The CD will include the same, of course, but you get the plastic case and the artwork and all that. And there's one other new idea that I'm actually thinking of throwing into the CD version, which watch this space. So when it's ready, I'll do up a web page that'll explain it all. But I'm basically just trying to make this a low cost game, and that's
awesome.
about it. It's a fun game. I've been playing it a fair bit. It can get hard because those red cars really get hound you in some of the later levels. But it's a quick game. You just start the game again and try again. It's just a fun game. Very much based on Rally X in the arcade. It's not quite the same. I've changed a few little things, and the lower res of the semi-graphics doesn't quite allow you to do the game exactly like in the arcade, of course. But I've just done the best I can to showcase a CoCo 1 and 2 game and Dragon in using the semi-graphics mode.
A quick question for anybody on the panel here who has a Dragon. Is the Dragon 32 easily upgradable to 64K? I know it came with 32K, but is it an easy upgrade, or does anybody know? Because obviously it'll work on a Dragon 64 just fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know much about the Dragon. Yeah, I don't know much about the Dragon. I assume it can be, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, hopefully somebody in chat who's actually more familiar with the Dragons can actually let us know here, because if it's a fairly easy upgrade, it might be an excuse for somebody to get one.
Well, that's right. Yeah, and the program will also support a 6309, but of course you don't gain to. I wrote the game with the intent that it's got to work on a 6809, but if you have a 6309, it turns it on and makes use of the 10% speed increase, but you don't really see it. Everything's all frame locked, so no big advantage there.
Just basically makes it run smoother like some of the other patches.
Well, you don't even see that. It's all pretty well locked in. So anyway, it's in there. I stuck it in there at the start because I thought I might need the speed, and well, I just left it in there. It makes no difference whether you've got a 6809 or 6309, so I just left it in there.
Okay.
So that's that. Yeah. Any other questions?
When the game ends, I'm surprised you didn't put like or something in there.
A Pac-Man, bloop bloop.
Yeah, something like you got, or something.
That's in the feature creep.
Yeah, it's only a little quick. It's only taken me 4 months, this one, so hurrah for lockdown, eh?
Great job.
Now, do you have it? And you don't have to give any details if you do have it. But do you have any other project plan for your next sequel, or are you going to wait for the money to rake in on this one first?
I've got lots of ideas. I just have to pick which one I'm going to do. So, no, nothing concrete at this point.
Okay, and are you favoring CoCo 3 for the next release, or are you going to do another retro CoCo 1 and 2 game? Or
well, I do like the CoCo 3, obviously, but I might do one more CoCo 1 and 2 game since I got this one done fairly quickly, so maybe one more. It depends on what idea I pick. So
it's a fun mode. It's a fun graphics mode.
Well, it's the mode that got me into the CoCo way back in the early 80s. I never liked any of the P modes that the black and whites or the black and greens or even the 4 color modes never really excited me at all. It was very, in my opinion, colorless. But the semi-graphics mode, it did provide 8 colors on a black background, and I thought, aha, there is hope for this machine. So when I got the CoCo, my CoCo 2 way back in '84, the first game I did was a game called Neutroid 2, which wasn't that popular, but it was a semi-graphics mode game. So it was 8 colors, and it had a lot of sound effects and all that. So it was the semi-graphics mode that interested me.
We've seen some games that really do semi-graphics. Actually, the Dragon had more semi-graphics games, I think, than the CoCo did, because that was a really popular. Because of course, they didn't have artifacting colors that everybody used in North America. So Australia and the UK all went for
Australia, yeah.
So there's quite a few we've actually shown on the GameOn news segments before of some of the semi-graphics games, plus a few that were released in North America too, like Protectors 2, Guardian. I think are probably the two most noteworthy.
It's a good mode. It has limitations. It's got a very low horizontal resolution. It's got the color limitations where you can't have more than 1 color plus black per byte. So there are some problems, and it does limit the type of games that you can have on it. Smooth scrolling is a lot harder to do in semi-graphics because of that. But you design you pick your games, you design it to work within those limitations, and that's what I've done with Rally SG, and it looks fairly colorful with all the scrolling and everything.
And the one nice thing too. Go ahead.
I was just saying it ain't no specky.
No, it's not.
The one nice thing is that back when the CoCo 3 first came out, one of the disappointments for a lot of people was that the semi-graphics modes, except for the very low-res 64x32, were dropped. And then I think it was Sockmaster, somebody else discovered that if you fiddle with a couple gimme registers, you can fake it to get the graphics back, but the text mode you still lose. So
Yeah.
the games you've been designing lately, you've been making sure scores and whatever else are all done
Well,
with the
that's
graphics
right.
characters.
Semi-graphics on the CoCo 1 and 2 allows you to combine essentially the SG4 text mode. So you can actually display the text characters, the normal 32 by 16 text characters, as well as the graphics. On the CoCo 3, you can't. The CoCo 3 only shows you the graphics part. So yeah, when I did Rally SG, I just said, well, that's easy fix. Just make all the text graphics as well. And that's why on the game you saw that the score numbering was only a 4-digit long character, because I was being that low res semi graphics pixels, which are fairly wide. You can't quite cram as many characters. Essentially, every text character was 2 bytes wide to get the size of the character or the numbers on the score. And that reduced it to a 4-digit score. So the scores in Rally SG are pretty low, just so you don't go over the 9,999 score.
So what happens? Does it wrap over like Death Trap does?
It actually does. It does actually keep the score internally. It's got another 2 digits as well, so it doesn't crash it. It keeps going, but it only ever shows.
Sorry, Mr. Dave Fodor, like holding my beer.
it only shows the bottom 4, but the game's actually pretty challenging, and I haven't been able to get up to 9,999. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it won't crash. It won't crash. It'll effectively look like it just rolls over again, even though it is actually internally keeping the 6-digit score.
You could change colors, so your blue score.
I did. That was an idea. I did think of that. Just change the color so you know that it's clocked over. But because I don't seem to ever be able to get to that point, that score, and I've played it a lot. I thought, nah, why not? Make it funny if it rolls over.
And one thing I'll mention on the semi-graphics modes themselves here, I mean, the higher semi-graphics modes actually let you mix the text characters. Like, you don't have to print the entire text character. Protectors 2 is probably the best example of how they drew the little waving humans on the buildings. Now that's something, of course, that does not work on the CoCo 3.
Yeah.
Yet, but the Gimme X actually is going to fix that, so that when you get a Gimme X, you can play all the old semi-graphics games properly. So that'll be a change. Nick, do you have any idea would you support doing that if the Gimme X becomes really popular? Because then you'd have the entire CoCo 1-2 market, the Dragon market, and then the CoCo 3 market with Gimme X.
Not really, because it has to work on every CoCo. Well, that was the goal with Rally SG. I said, I'll do a game that works on every CoCo, and that means going down to the lowest common denominator, which in this case is the CoCo 3. If the CoCo 3 can't do text, then there's no point putting the text into the game. If CoCo's 1, if it only works on a CoCo 1, 2, Gimme X and Dragon, and the CoCo 3 then misses out. So I figure, well, just do it in graphics.
Okay, I was just asking because I didn't know if there was a certain threshold where if they sold this many Gimme X's, you'd say, oh, maybe the market's big enough to warrant it.
Well, that's a different story, yeah, if there's that many. But I don't want to shortchange the people who have a real CoCo 3 and they say, oh, damn, now this game doesn't work on a CoCo 3. So I wanted every CoCo. So support the lowest common denominator. It works on everything. 1, 2, 3, Dragon, and Gimme X. So there you go. It's an even bigger market.
So Nick Marotta, I was going to suggest, since you were asking for suggestions for GameOn challenges here, how about for August or September, maybe we'll have to, give especially shipping from Australia, if anybody wants to, if there's a physical media version of it available.
Well, that'll be shipped from America.
Oh, will it? Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, America to Canada right now is a bit of a slow delay too. So.
Oh, okay.
How much should I charge Nick for that? What do you think's a fair rate to promote his game?
But I think we should make this a GameOn challenge, like a month or two after the release.
Absolutely.
Well, is there going to be a digital download? You said it's going to be a digital download.
Yeah, so there won't be an issue.
So
Nick too, even if you buy the disc, he sends you the digital right away.
Yeah, that's right. So
even if you buy
I like that model. The moment you buy it, within 24 hours, you've got the game.
Okay, so maybe in say like mid-August or something, we'll make that the.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to a jar of Vegemite, Nick. I mean, if
I certainly would. I would not accept that. That's punishment. That's not
most
reward.
people would.
But yes, well, that'll definitely be absolutely.
Grease
one
my
of the
cat
things
weasel.
too
I
is-
have no use for Vegemite. So.
I mean, one of the things too is I like to promote the fact that there's new software being written and to encourage, because this market's we're doing really well right now as a retro market. Got new games coming out and new hardware being developed, and it's like the more we can expose that, the better.
Well, with today's rising entertainment costs, it's a real bargain.
And also, Robert Murphy's contesting your claim there, Nick. He's saying the MC10 wasn't included.